Hi class, this is Mr. Tan and we are in BBE, Business and Business Environment, and we are focusing on question 6. PO6 says explain is a key word here. Explain means to go into more detail. How the strengths and weaknesses interrelate with the external macro environment or macro factors. Well, we need to break the question down. And in terms of breaking the question down, obviously in the case study you'll be focusing on a specific company. So in this instance we are looking at Toyota, and then we have to look at the strengths and weaknesses of Toyota. Now generally speaking, the strengths and weaknesses of Toyota can be seen in terms of the whole company, which will also reflect the strengths and weaknesses of Toyota UK. But we also have to understand what we mean by the external macro factors. Now, to look at the external macro factors, we are going to use Porter's five-force model. Now, Porter's five-force model says that there are 5 forces that have an influence over the company. The first factor is going to be entrance. How easy is it for other companies to enter into the marketplace? The more capital intensive the business, like the motor industry, the harder it is for new companies to come in and to establish themselves, because they need huge sums of money for investment in terms of production, in terms of warehousing, in terms of staff, before they even get into their distribution and their marketing. So as a rule in the motor industry, the threat of entrance is quite low. What about the threat of substitutes? Well, in the motor industry, the global need for motor vehicles worldwide are growing. So even though there are substitutes, the threat of substitutes in replacing motor vehicles are not going to be that high. What effect do customers have on the company and the industry? Well, customers have a huge effect on the company and industry, because customers can pick and choose which products they like, and if they don't like one product, they can always go with another company with a similar type product with similar features and benefits. So again, the power really is in the hands of the customer. And then the other factor would be suppliers. How much of a power do the suppliers affect on Toyota's industry? Well, really the manufacturers have more power, and they command and they tell the suppliers what to do, because they can pick and choose which suppliers they want. So suppliers have to meet the needs of the manufacturers. And then in the middle of Porter's five-force model we have competitive rivalry. And competitive rivalry is saying how competitive is the industry. Are there just 1 or 2 players? Are there a few players? And how is this broken down, and how do they compete with each other? Well, in the motor industry we know that this environment is extremely competitive. Everyone's competing against each other. There are different models targeting different segmentations, different models targeting different niches, and different positioning strategies of different models. And you have many different players in the industry, and have been around for a long time with large sources of money. So the first thing that you need to do really is to explain Porter's five-force model in terms of macro factors, and explain the entrance, suppliers, customers, substitutes, and then the competitive rivalry inside Porter's five-force model. Now the second thing you need to do, if we're looking at the case study of Toyota, is look at the strengths and weaknesses of Toyota. I mean, the key strengths of Toyota are really going to be their brand image and their reputation. Another huge strength of Toyota is going to be their integral research and development department, which comes out with their new products all the time, and they have huge sums of money invested into R&D. Another key strength is going to be the company is fully funded, and they have huge sources of resources available in terms of funding and finance. And another key strength of Toyota is going to be their distribution networks. They're in over 90 different countries, and they have worldwide distribution integrated franchise networks where they can, if they come out of a new product, they can easily get this product out into the distribution outlets. So these are some of the strengths that Toyota have. Well, what about some of the weaknesses? Some of the weaknesses, as we've looked at before, include recently they've had the recall of certain cars and certain models where there have been problems with these models, and Toyota's had to recall these cars back. This has been a big problem for Toyota because it really kind of makes a dent into their long-standing reputation of quality, reliability and cost effectiveness. So now we're seeing some instances where cars have various problems. One problem with one model whereby the accelerator wouldn't come back up and stop, so you couldn't press the brake. A few people died from this. Again, all these cars had to be recalled, and again, which meant the waste of time, loss of investment, compensation for people, and taking all these cars back off the marketplace. So it has been an expensive time and a loss of profits for Toyota from this perspective. The other thing is, in certain markets, in certain geographical markets, they've got huge competition. They've got huge competition, which is in certain segments they are targeting. So another key weakness is, in comparison to other industry standards and other competitors and other companies, they have a poor allocation of resources. So they're not getting the maximum out of their resources in terms of their investment. Okay, so we've looked at the strengths and we looked at the weaknesses, and we've looked at Porter's 5-force model. But now, in terms of answering and completing the question, we need to say to ourselves, well, how do the strengths and weaknesses interrelate to the macro environment? How does it interrelate to Porter's 5-force model? Well, the strengths obviously are going to interrelate to Porter's 5-force model because inside the competitive industry, having strong distribution, strong branding and R&D where they can come up with new products, and new products are obviously the lifeblood of any company. This helps Toyota to be a key player within the automotive industry, and which means that they are even more competitive than other companies in this marketplace, and they need to be, because only the strong will survive in this marketplace. Well, how do the weaknesses interrelate? Well, the weaknesses interrelate because with the recent recall of the cars and the damage in terms of the reputation and some deaths of people where the accelerator wouldn't come back up, well, this has meant that customers, again, in Porter's 5-force model, has lost some confidence with Toyota to such a degree then they have switched their products and gone to other companies, and again strengthening the position in Porter's 5-force model that the customers are key and the customers' needs must be satisfied. So these obviously affect the company's objectives in terms of meeting profits and profit expectations, and therefore providing dividends to shareholders who have invested in the company, meeting employers' needs and also meeting the needs of their customers, which at the moment they're not fully realizing. So when you're answering this question, I would start off by talking about Porter's 5-force model, and I would explain the model and go through the substitutes, the customers, the suppliers and the entrants, and then talk about the middle Porter's 5-force model, talking about the competitive rivalry. I would then move on and talk about, as we're using Toyota in this instance, the strengths and weaknesses of Toyota. And then finally you need to interrelate the strengths and weaknesses to Porter's 5-force model, and then finally say how those affect the aims and objectives of Toyota. Okay, is there any questions in the class? No? Okay, many thanks.